I think a lot of us are addicted to our phones for a reason that has almost nothing to do with our phones. I don't think you're always scrolling because there's something interesting to see. Sometimes you're scrolling because there's something you don't want to think about. And honestly, that sounds a lot worse. Because if you're addicted to your phone, you can blame the phone. You can delete the app. You can turn off notifications. You can put it in another room. But if you're addicted to avoiding your own thoughts, where exactly do you go? Think about the last time you were completely alone with nothing to do. No music, no YouTube, no Instagram, no messages, no game running in the background, just you. How long did it take before you reached for your phone? 10 minutes? 5? Maybe 30 seconds? And I'm not judging you because I've done the exact same thing. You sit down for a second and suddenly your hand reaches for your phone without you even thinking about it. You open Instagram. There's nothing interesting. So you open YouTube. Nothing there either. Then you check Instagram again. Somehow the exact same posts are still there, because apparently we've decided staring at the same three apps is a reasonable way to spend an afternoon. But here's the weird part. Sometimes you aren't looking for entertainment. You're looking for noise. Because the second everything gets quiet, your brain starts talking, and your brain remembers things you've been avoiding all day. That conversation you keep replaying, something somebody said to you, something you regret, something you're worried about, something you know you should be doing but keep putting off. Maybe you're unhappy with where your life is going. Maybe you don't even know what you want. And suddenly that TikTok becomes very important. Not because it's funny, because it's easier. That's the part nobody really talks about when they talk about phone addiction. We always talk about dopamine, algorithms, notifications, screen time. And yeah, all of that matters. But I think there's another layer underneath it. Sometimes the phone isn't stealing your attention. You're giving it away because you don't want your attention on yourself. That's a pretty uncomfortable thought, because it means getting rid of the phone doesn't automatically solve the problem. You could put your phone down and still find something else. Music, gaming, Netflix, YouTube, cleaning your room for 3 hours when it somehow wasn't that dirty to begin with. Humans are incredibly creative when it comes to avoiding themselves. And I'm not saying you should sit in a dark room and stare at the wall for 6 hours trying to understand your soul. Please don't. But I think there's something valuable about being bored again. Real boredom. The kind where you don't immediately reach for something to fill the silence. Because boredom gives your brain room to wonder. And sometimes where your brain wonders tells you more about yourself than any personality test ever will. Think about what happens when you're walking somewhere without your phone. Your brain starts doing things on its own. You remember an old memory. You think about an idea. You suddenly realize why something has been bothering you. You come up with a video idea. You imagine a conversation. You solve a problem that you've been stuck on for 3 days. And then you get home and you think, wait, where did that thought come from? It came from having nothing else demanding your attention. That's why some of your best ideas probably show up in the shower. Nobody's sending you notifications in there. Your brain finally gets a few minutes without someone screaming for its attention. And there's another thing I've noticed. When you're constantly consuming other people's thoughts, you have less time to develop your own. You're watching somebody else's opinion about relationships, then somebody else's opinion about money, then somebody else's opinion about success, then somebody else's opinion about what you should believe. And after a while, you might know what everyone else thinks, but you don't really know what you think. That's kind of scary. You can spend an entire day consuming information and somehow learn nothing about yourself. You watch a 2-hour podcast about discipline, then spend the next 4 hours avoiding the thing you actually need to do. You watch videos about confidence while avoiding the conversation you're scared to have. You watch videos about getting your life together while lying in bed thinking about getting your life together. At some point, self-improvement content can become another form of procrastination. And I think that's one of the easiest traps to fall into because it feels productive. You're not wasting time, right? You're learning. You're listening to something educational. You're improving yourself. Except, you're still sitting there. There's a difference between thinking about changing your life and actually changing it. And sometimes the reason we keep consuming is because consuming gives us the feeling of progress without the risk of actually doing anything. You can watch someone explain exactly how to start a business without ever starting one. You can watch someone explain how to get fit without going to the gym. You can watch someone explain how to stop overthinking while spending another hour thinking about whether you overthink too much. It's almost hilarious when you step back and look at it. But I don't think the answer is to throw your phone into a lake and become a monk. You don't need to hate technology. You just need to be able to exist without it. That's the difference. There's nothing wrong with watching a movie. There's nothing wrong with playing games. There's nothing wrong with scrolling for a while. The problem is when you can't stop, when every quiet moment has to be filled, when eating requires a video, walking requires music, using the bathroom requires scrolling, falling asleep requires a podcast, and the moment you're alone with your thoughts, you feel uncomfortable. That's when I think it's worth paying attention. Because maybe the discomfort isn't the enemy. Maybe it's information. Maybe that feeling you're trying to escape is trying to tell you something. You're bored because your life feels repetitive. You're restless because you're not doing what you actually want to do. You're anxious because there's something you've been avoiding. You're lonely because you're not connecting with people. You're frustrated because you know you're capable of more. And instead of listening to any of that, you open another app. Again, I'm not saying every bad feeling has some deep hidden meaning. Sometimes you're just tired. Sometimes you're hungry. Sometimes you genuinely need to watch a stupid video of a dog falling off a couch. That's part of being alive. But if you never sit with yourself long enough to hear what's actually going on in your head, you might spend years running from a problem you don't even understand. And maybe that's why being alone feels so uncomfortable for some people. It's not necessarily loneliness. It's the absence of distraction. There's a difference. You can be alone and completely fine. You can also be surrounded by people and desperately want to escape your own thoughts. So I've started thinking about it differently. Maybe the goal isn't to use your phone less. Maybe the goal is to become comfortable enough with yourself that you don't need to use it every time your brain gets quiet. That's a much harder goal, but probably a more useful one. Try walking somewhere without headphones once. Sit outside for 10 minutes without checking your phone. Eat a meal without watching something. Go to bed without having a video playing in the background. And don't turn it into some ridiculous productivity challenge where you're tracking every second of silence like you've unlocked monk mode. Just notice what happens. Notice what your mind starts talking about. Because eventually, underneath all the random thoughts, there's probably something you've been trying not to hear. And maybe that's the thing you actually need to pay attention to. We spend so much time trying to protect ourselves from boredom, but boredom might be one of the few places where you can actually hear yourself think. So maybe you're not addicted to your phone. Maybe you're addicted to never having to sit alone with yourself. And if that's true, the solution isn't another productivity hack. It's learning that your own thoughts aren't something you have to run from. Because eventually, no matter how much noise you surround yourself with, you're still the person who's left when the screen turns off. And honestly, you should probably get to know that person.